Hola, amigos. Welcome to the Simply Trade News Roundup, where we cover the biggest news happening in the trade industry. I'm Annik, and I'm here with Lalo. Hi, Lalo.
Hello, Annik. Hola, Annik.
Hola. Yeah, you are probably surprised why I'm speaking a little bit of Spanish. I pulled out all the stops today, but it is Hispanic Heritage Month, which we are celebrating. Woo! It's a
Yay.
celebration. Well, just wanted to share that it holds a special significance as it honors and celebrates the diverse cultural contributions and rich traditions of Hispanic and American communities, which I feel like you know a lot about, Lalo, because you live right by the border, right?
Yeah. Well, of course, and that's what I am, first generation American. So I definitely know about being Mexican American. So I can guarantee you Spanish, I know
right?
that. Huh?
You speak Spanish?
Muy bien, claro que sí.
Okay, I understand. I understood you because I do actually understand a little bit of Spanish. Okay.
Yeah, you grew up here too in El Paso,
so
I
you speak a little bit, and I understand much more because it also is very close to French, and I've had French for a long time.
Yes.
But that's not it, or not all, because it is also Mexico's Independence Day today. So we are really
Mexico.
celebrating. Yeah, Mexico. We're really celebrating today. So me gusta. I like it. But yeah, so we just wanted to mention this just because it is very relevant. And hopefully you are enjoying these celebrations and honoring this day and this entire month for Hispanic Heritage Month, which lasts up to October 15th, I believe. It started September 15th and lasts to October 15th. But we can celebrate all year. I mean, whatever you want to do, right? So anyways, we kind of have to stop talking now, or I have to stop talking, right? And moving right on to our articles. So are you ready?
Ready.
All right, let's get started.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we have a little update for you with the first article that we're getting into. So we've talked about the labor negotiations in the maritime industry. And so what is going on? That port employers are urging the ILA, which is the International Longshoremen's Association, to return to contract talks, emphasizing the significance of timely negotiations to mitigate potential disruptions in port operations, which we have talked about a few weeks ago, that there might be a strike. Okay, well, apparently there has not been a strike, but so the maritime industry is kind of facing a conflict and challenges, including fluctuation market demands and evolving trade patterns, underscoring the need for swift and right resolutions in the labor negotiations. So we don't really know what is going to happen. We can't really predict. But what we can do is kind of think about what would happen. So, if there would be a strike, so we kind of want to understand this strike a little bit more, or what will happen if there is one, and what the situation looks like. So we'll quickly go over that since we have talked on it. But Lalo, what is your stance or view on this right now?
Well, same as last time, of course. You just never know what's going to happen. And like you said, maybe let's take the approach of, as a trade professional, what are you need to do? What are you going to need to do so that you can prepare for this, or in case it happens? Of course, if it doesn't happen, well, it's business as usual. But if it does happen, what do you need to do? That's the problem, is that you just don't know what you're gonna be facing. So, in my research, the way I was like searching through different things, so then I coincidentally found another article that talks about how the spot rates for the East Coast ports is going dramatically down right now. They're plunging, as they say in the article. This is a very different article. They're plunging because now everybody's actually doing what we normally would say, people should be doing, which is look at your supply chain and see how. The problem is that right now it's the peak season. Right now is when you're bringing in stuff for
Christmas.
the holiday season. Yeah, this is it. I mean, this is like this is crunch time here. This is when you're going up and you're making sure that this is going to get done. And because of that, so there is no time to wait. I mean, you can say, okay, well, the East Coast ports haven't shut down. Okay, well, cool. I can still be shipping and let's go on our merry way. But that's not the case. If something takes 2 to 3 weeks, let's say from China to get to the US, you don't know what's going to happen next week or the following week. So what they're doing is that they're routing everything to the West Coast. So the spot rates in the East Coast are plunging because there's a lot less volume going through those ports now than in the West Coast.
So
what does that mean? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand. If I'm understanding you correctly, if they were to come to, since right now we're kind of in a loophole, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. So people obviously don't want to ship there because they want their shipments to get to the destination. So what if they were to get a negotiation going and settle this whole thing? You think it would obviously increase again, right? People would feel more comfortable and trade would be more smoother, correct?
Well, yeah, it'll make everything's everything back, it'll even out, you know what I mean? And people will ship to their respective ports the way they normally do. And and to some extent, it'll also help the consumer because now someone in New York, for example, is not going to have to pay. Well, I'm not saying they're directly paying or anything. Obviously we pay for everything through the price of goods, right? They're not going to have to pay for something that goes from the West Coast all the way up to New York just to get it to them. You know what I mean? And so that's just one of the things that could be going on right now and kind of make it easier for our consumers all over the US not having to be concerned with maybe prices may be going up. So yeah, to answer your question, things would and should level back off. But I don't know, Annik, that article you gave us, it's from the Journal of Commerce. So if y'all have access to that's a very good article. And coincidentally enough, the article that I found on the spot rates is also from the Journal of Commerce. It's also a really good article, but I guess I would check that out because that article didn't seem too promising. It sounds like the ILA is just pretty much not negotiating at all. They're not responding, period. They're just saying, not saying anything.
I think what's going to happen is they're going to go for a strike and then they'll have to. I don't know what they're thinking. Like, is the ILA thinking that these workers are just going to keep, being verbal and not like actually, putting their workforce down and not working? Because clearly they're working right now still. But once there's a strike, I mean, they're not going to work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that depending on who you talk to, you can look at one side of the story and say, as long as you haven't gone on strike, you still have a lot of leverage in negotiation. Once you go on strike, there goes your leverage. In other words, they're already being replaced by other people to get the work done and everything. So you have a lot less leverage to negotiate. I mean, again, that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is, when I go on strike, everything shuts down, things are slowing down, everything is a mess. And so now I have more leverage because you're anxious to get my workers back on the job, because things are going so bad. So again, I'm not going to argue one or the other. I mean, I'm just giving you my point of view. Not my point of view. I'm giving both sides of the story in that case. You know what I mean? So really, I really do hope that workers get what they need and be fair about it, not necessarily just because they just want a lot more
take
money.
Advantage.
So, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that is a very reasonable thing. Like it needs to be within reason, all of this. But what is within reason? So, I mean, there's so much. I feel like I can't talk because I don't know. I mean, there's so much going on and if I'm not a worker, I don't understand it. And if I'm not the ILA, I don't understand it. But I also know that how businesses work, and they don't want to spend money on some people. But some businesses can't. So I obviously don't know. But all of this are factors that are affecting this entire thing, I think. So,
right.
Yeah, interesting story. We'll keep you in check for that. So if there's a strike, you'll definitely know it here first, or maybe second, because there's an article about it. All right. So the second one is a pretty interesting one. So the World Trade Organization, WTO, has released a report underscoring the disproportional impact of import tariffs on low-income households. So interesting. I mean, this was an interesting study, challenging basically the notion that open markets contribute to global inequality. So basically, there's concerns raised regarding the potential escalation of this. So I don't know. What do you think, Lalo? What do you think on this?
Okay, so kind of let me take this point of view also. I mean, I'm going to talk about what this article is talking about, and then I guess we can talk a little bit more about the impact on trade professionals, because obviously that's what we're trying to address here. But pretty much what they're saying is the more tariffs that we have, the more people that are lower income, no matter where in the world they are. Here in the U.S., we have lots of low income families. It's not just in like third world countries or other countries that are growing or whatever. So the thing is that they're saying more tariffs equal more problems for low-income families. That's exactly right. I mean, that could be very, very true. Not could be, it is very true. So that's what the report is saying. But at the same time, they're also not addressing, in my point of view. Okay, and again, both sides of the story, like the unions and the ports and all that. Okay, like this last story. Let's look at the other side of the story. What happens if we don't put tariffs on products like here in the US and in the EU? I think this report kind of targeted the EU, Canada, and the US,
Yeah.
how we're raising tariffs, especially on China, right? So, okay, so let's say we don't have those tariffs. Let's say we have lower tariffs. Let's help our lower income households. They're talking that it also affects women, single women, of course, and of course, small companies, small enterprises, because we as small companies consume and depend on lower cost products so that we can compete better in the market, of course, right? So anyway, so let's look at that. But what happens to, let's say, those other small companies that are producing that same widget here in the US that China is bringing into the country? If those tariffs were not there, then I would definitely, I'm not going to say I would definitely be out of business, but I would probably not be able to compete because, again, we've talked about this so many times in the podcast, where other countries like China will subsidize products and manufacturers to help them build products for a lot less than what we can build them here in the States. Okay. Aside from the fact of the forced labor, aside from the fact of any of those other factors, let's just say all things being equal, if they get subsidized, then of course it's going to create an unfair advantage for local producers. So let's look at that. Okay, so then if there's no taxes, if there's no tariffs, then what is that small manufacturer? Like, let's say I'm making some widgets, then the implication on me is that now I can't hire people, now I can't produce this because I cannot compete, and I'm not going to be able to survive. You know what I mean? So again, those two sides of the coin, I'm just... That's the only problem I had with the report. I don't think I really saw that being addressed on that report. I only saw... Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. What?
No, I was just gonna say I only saw the one side of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So, and we encourage you to look at this report. So it does provide insights into the potential escalation of, the protectionist measures and the lasting repercussions of trade barriers on domestic prices, consumption, and global economic stability. So if you want to look at that, and maybe let us know your opinion on this, and
Right.
possibly we can go deeper into this topic, because it is very interesting, and it does affect trade or the way businesses run. So, if you're a small business owner, we would like to hear your side of the story or how you feel about this.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good if we had like an economist tell us, porque, I'm not by no means am I an economist, nor would I even. I mean, honestly, for me, that's just something that bores me. So I would not be able to even go down that route. But anyway, so that's just it. I would like to hear that, and I would like to understand that. But that's just my point of view, right? And then for trade professionals, so what is their deal? So now they need to, if tariffs are too high, and you want to help the local or not local, the national economy by importing products with no tariffs or lower tariffs, just to help, just with lower income families, business, etc. Then you need to, what's the thing? Well, you need to shift and change all your supply chain, the way you're going to get products, only because now you're going to need to import differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I agree. There's different sides to the whole story. I mean, there's consumer sides, there's business sides, there's, the economy side. And that being to mush together creates this outcome. So, I mean, I don't know. Interesting. So if you have any comments on this, please reach out to us, or please comment, or, if you really want to come on the podcast and talk on it, let us know. Okay, moving on to the last article, and I had to bring some China into this. I love to bring China into this. Just kidding. It's just always in the news, so it makes the cut. This one is about lawmakers are raising concerns about Chinese manufactured agriculture drones in the U.S. There's accusations of potential national security risks associated with aerosol dispensing drones. That's aerosol.
Those like just liquid, or let's just aerosol. Spray. They go and spray the crops. That's what that is.
I see. So the DGI denies ties to Chinese military and promotes benefits of technology for American farmers. I see. Yeah. Earlier it didn't click, but now I'm like, okay, this is definitely a threat how they could get us. I think okay, I'm going to real quick share my perspective. I think that it is good that they have the idea of it being a threat. I'm not saying it is a threat, but I'm saying it's good to have these type of thoughts so we can be ahead of the game and, understand, okay, is there a threat? Question it all, because we need to be on top of it. We can't just be thinking, like, we know that China is a little suspicious. So we have to be on top of what we're using in the States. And I mean, so this is interesting, but I don't know. What do you think on this? And what do you think of their, how they're acting on it?
Well, I mean, obviously you can't really just believe everything that China says, and especially in this case, DJI, unfortunately, let me just say this much. Unfortunately, DJI is probably one of the best drones you can find out there. Admittedly, we use DJI equipment, not drones, because we don't have need for drones. But like our camera stabilizers and equipment like that are DJI, and they're pretty damn good. I mean, I want to admit, they are really good. And they're not cheap and they're not expensive either. They're just right. They're good price, but they really are an industry standard. Their drones, same thing. I know when I looked at drones just for fun and recreational, DJI was always there, on the top of the list. So, yeah, I mean, that is a reputable company, and by them saying we don't have any ties to the military, yada yada, all this kind of good stuff. Yeah, but like look at Huawei, they got into like a whole mess of trouble, 900 and something $1 million fine, because of what they were doing with their chips and their technology and spying and all that. So hey, I mean, you just don't know. They insisted they were not spying. They insisted that nothing bad was going on, but yet, yes, they were. And so anyway, so it's just security measures, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You
I agree.
you gotta make sure that I can see why we're doing that, and I can see why it's important. So then there's also this idea when I was doing my research. So by the way, for trade professionals, I don't know how much takeaways we'll have here, in the sense that this is mostly talking about technology and everything coming into the United States, and maybe even leaving the United States. But so I won't have much of an opinion on that, as much as
Yeah.
what the story is saying. And I don't know if we talked about it in our one of our news updates, but I know I've been hearing and talking a lot about, like, when we're out with friends and just talking how Chinese, there is a fact that Chinese are buying land, mainly farms, in and around like military bases in the United States, or and they're doing it to spy on us, just to spy on Americans. I know this is not talking about that, but maybe I want to find a link. I want to find a link in saying that those drones could easily be flying up there, spraying aerosol, but if they're near, like a security building, or a military base or whatever, who knows what kind of information they're sending back to China, right? I mean, so again, I'm not one to be a big conspiracy theory person, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a link and trying to make this story a little more sensational, or just to see if we can stir some conversations and people saying, "Oh, this is not, this is something weird is going on," or whatever, just anyway. But so anyway, so that's kind of what I came up with, only because again, I do remember that happening in the past as well. So
Yeah, and I'm thinking like for on the trade side, we do have a lot of companies not with drones, but there have been a lot of issues with like Chinese parts in some products for businesses or whatever, and they're struggling with that kind of, you know I don't know. I don't really know how to say it, but like trouble with dealing with China. So I guess this is the same way, even though it's not purely trade. I wouldn't even consider this much of trade, but I think the same concept appears a lot in trade with China, where the government is coming in and saying, look, there might be a suspicion here or whatever. So I don't know. It's just always, businesses have to stay on top of it. They have to know who they're interacting with, what they're putting into their products, the safety measures. And all of this can be done by being in compliance. So best thing to do is staying compliant. And, Global Training Center is here for you all the way through on-demand, through corporate, through webinars, through seminars, through private webinars, seminars, whatever you need. We're here. So if you have any questions, if you have any need for that, please contact us, especially upcoming in October 8th, our forced labor course. So that is a huge one. Please sign up if you're just even slightly dealing with forced labor, or, you're not sure. You should probably take this course. I mean, it's better than paying billions of dollars. But I have a fun fact for you before we end this little podcast. So, do you know the leading coffee importing countries, or can you guess?
you already asked us that,
Did I?
didn't you? Or
No,
did
I
you
think I
ask
said exports.
maybe importing countries of coffee besides the U.S.? I'm
Maybe
gonna
I should say
say
pumpkins. No, we're not in. No, we're in, this is for fall. This is not fall yet. I really want to go there, but no, it's
yeah.
coffee. Yes.
Okay, no.
No, I have
Some
not asked this
country.
question because I would have
Okay,
known.
okay. So a country that's very cold, like Russia. I don't know.
See? No, wrong. The
Who
United
is it?
States.
Okay.
And second is Germany.
Oh my goodness.
And
There you go.
third is France and fourth is Italy.
The two top countries where you lived in. So I think it
Yeah,
has
it's
something
funny.
to do with
But
you. You're the common denominator.
and this, yeah. Well, and the United States, so I mean it's so big. But comparable, actually it's so the United States is at $8 million and Germany is at 4 million. But if you consider the difference of how big these countries are, I think United States should be way lower. So this is like, okay, this is in million of US dollars. But if you proportionalize this whole thing, I think the United States would be way lower.
Right. Right.
You know what
Compared
I'm
to the
saying?
size of Germany, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Like Texas is 3 times bigger than Germany. So,
right.
and this is only, and the United States are only paying double the amount of imports. Well, also we don't know how much coffee, there, or beans. I don't know. There's there's a lot of variables to this, guys, but this is where it's at right now. But just know that if it's proportionalized, it probably would change. But I am not doing that for you because that's just too much. I'm sure there's an article on it you can find. Anywho, this was very fun. I hope you enjoyed this little look into what is happening in the world. And maybe, you have a little topic to talk about on your dinner table. And we appreciate your comments on letting us know that you were listening to the podcast or you enjoy the podcast or, you wish to hear something else. Really, truly enjoy this. I have had someone recently bring it up in one of the Global Training Center webinars that sometimes I attend. And she was like, I really like the podcast. It's so fun. I'm like,
give her a shout out. Do you remember her name?
Yeah, I am. I think her name was Angeline. So thank you so much, Angeline. I remember your name. I think that's what it was. I hope it's right. Hope you're listening and thank you. Reach out to us if you listen to this podcast. So that is it for today. And we will hear you back next week. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Lalo.
Have a good one. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to be on vacation the next 2 weeks, so I won't be on the podcast.
Oh, wait. Okay, well, we're going to listen to that after. Okay. Sorry. All right. Bye. You won't hear from Lalo.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com or you can DM us on Twitter at SimplyTradePod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.